So as we look into this very interesting topic, I would like to begin with a word of prayer, and then I'll be moving forward to share my screen in order for all of us to see what is in store today. So let us pray before we begin. Everlasting Father, Lord, we thank you for another opportunity to come together as brothers and sisters to celebrate and to fellowship one with another. Lord, as we are about to look into some very important things that are needed for our understanding and our daily activities, I pray that you will send the Holy Spirit to be with us and guide our hearts and guide our minds as we seek to learn more about what you have in store for us. Thank you, we pray in your Son's name. Amen. The dating game or fame. The dating game or fame. Interesting topic for us to be looking at. And we're gonna see how this topic will unfold. And I hope and trust that as it unfolds, we are able to say, yes, it was good for us to be here because I've learned something so valuable and something that I can apply my whole life, something that I can share with others so that they can also benefit from the things that we will look on today. So the dating game or fame. So I'm sure everyone is familiar with this logo that we have on our screen. And it says Family Feud. If you are not familiar with this logo and what it stands for, Family Feud is a TV game show that involves a team or two teams of individuals who come together to answer questions. And they answer questions from different categories, and each person from the team is invited to participate individually as they come forward. And what they're asked to do is to answer questions that are displayed after they would have given their opinion or their answer for the question on this board. And each answer is given a certain amount of points. It's not set amount of points for every answer, but based on the questions that are done through survey, you are able to answer the question. And if your answer is the number one answer based on the survey, you get a significant amount of points. Interesting concept that this show seeks to come across with. We're going to see how much it fits into what we're going to look into today. But there's another game show I want us to look also on, and it's a very, very familiar one. This one is called Wheel of Fortune. What is the concept of Wheel of Fortune? Well, without any sort of critical thinking, it involves a wheel. And what the wheel does is it is labeled with a lot of monetary symbols, and one individual out of three spins this wheel, and whatever it is that their marker lands on, if it's a significant amount of money, they are then supposed to solve a puzzle on our boards that we're looking on our screen. And so you're going to solve a puzzle, which is quite often a phrase or a sentence. And what you do is you either, by the spinning of the wheel, whatever significant amount you land on, you are able to speak some letter from the alphabet, which helps to manifest or to highlight what the phrase or sentence is saying. If you are keen enough you could be able to see what the sentence is saying or the hint what the sentence is saying, and you can solve the puzzle. Interesting methodologies and interesting concepts that these two TV shows have, Family Feud and Wheel of Fortune. Now, what does this really have to do with what we're going to look on today? The topic we're looking on is the dating game or fame. And interestingly enough, folks who are going to be involved or who are involved in these particular TV show games, there is some rules and parameters and concepts that they should be familiar with in order to be able to participate in these TV shows or in these TV games. So we're going to use this as an object lesson to look on the concept of dating and decision making. But what is dating? Now we're going to understand as we move along what this very important aspect of human interaction is about. Dating can be likened to a game. And I know this is going to cause a lot of folks to be on alert, but follow as we seek to unfold this concept of the dating game. Dating can be likened to a game. It is a game that is about mystery, growth, and adventure. Now, in order for dating to be beneficial, we must develop the right frame of mind, because a right frame of mind is essential for anyone to experience ultimate success in the dating world. And every single one of us at some point in time has been involved in the dating game. The same premise applies to one who plays sports. If you want to win, you must not only play the game well, but you must also see yourself as a winner from the onset. So there's some preparation that one must be involved in order to participate in the dating game. Now, who is involved in dating? Most times, or it should be all the times, individuals who are considered to be single, who are involved in the dating game or in the dating world. But there are important things that one must establish as one goes along. Understanding who you are as a single person. And singleness is you learning about yourself with yourself. There are certain things you learn about yourself as a single person that you would not even learn if you still live within your family structure. So singleness essentially allows you to learn things about yourself whilst you are functioning by yourself. But then as you understand singleness, you must then understand how dating coincides with that. So what is dating? Dating is you learning about someone else with yourself. So as you interact with another individual, you are not just learning about that other individual, you are also learning alongside yourself, because then you are able to see who you are as you interact with this individual on a one-on-one, face-to-face level. So as a single person, you are able to learn about yourself. And as a person who is single that is dating, you are now engaged in learning about someone else along with yourself. So we're going to look briefly on some of the things that one should be preparing for in the dating realm as a single person. Within the singlehoodness of your life, there's some things that you should be able to prepare as you are growing as an individual. There are three simple things that we're going to look at. The first thing is that we should remember that singleness is a divine gift. Whatever your experience of singleness has been, recognize that it is a gift from God. The Apostle Paul gives us this understanding in 1 Corinthians 7 and verse 7. Singleness is a gift from God. Some people think that singleness is a curse. And they're not necessarily wrong, because many times in whatever period of time in your life you are, depending on that period of time, if you have been single for a while, it feels like a curse. So we can't take that away from individuals who say that. But truly, singleness is a gift from God, because it allows you to be able to grow as an individual. And the Apostle Paul helps us to understand that that gift comes from God himself. So we should not believe that it is going to be something that is going to be the end of you. The second thing we want to look at is that being single causes one to have a life that is dedicated. What does that mean in the context? It is easy for those who are single to lapse into a selfish, self-centered lifestyle. Many individuals who are single create this environment around them where they are only for themselves. And obviously, if you are by yourself, you are responsible for yourself. But that is not entirely what I mean. It means that many individuals who are single create this type of aura of themselves where nothing else matters. They're only moving towards all the things that they want without any consideration for anybody else. So nobody else is important more than me. Even though you should take responsibility and you should say, hey, I'm important, but one should not reach the point where they're only seeking to satisfy themselves. And when we look in the world we live in, we realize that individuals quite often find themselves in this type of lifestyle where their entire focus is self-driven, self-centered, and selfish. The Bible helps us to understand that in this point in your life as a single person, you should develop self-discipline, and one should become accountable to God himself. In 1 Corinthians 7 also, verse 32 to 34, the Apostle Paul gives us another overview of what it means when you are single, that you should not only become self-disciplined, but you should be dedicated not only to your own development, but to a passion or a cause. God should be able to say, I can vouch for this individual, even though they are not responsible for anybody else in a personal sense but themselves, but they are dedicated as an individual. So that's one thing that we should keep in mind as one who is single. The third thing is that we should remember that our family, your family, is the entire church community. As we are individuals who believe in God, as we're individuals who subscribe to the truth of God, we are reminded, even in our singlehood, that we should remember that the entire church is our family. So you're not isolated by yourself. You are not disconnected from anyone, because you are a part of a community of believers who you consider your family. The Apostle Paul highlights that in Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 19. We are children of God. God doesn't have grandchildren. We are children of God. Henceforth, children are considered to be siblings, and siblings are always, or most times, connected 100%. So as a single person, you are part of a great big family, not just here on earth, but in the universe. You are a part of God's grand family. So those are just some reminders for those who are in the singleness of their life. But let's move on, because we're talking about dating. How does this seeks to find root or find a solid platform as you go into the dating realm? Now, there's something that I want us to remember and to be reminded of. We don't all date the same way. We use the tools we have to gain the same prize or the same outcome, but we don't all date the same way. And that's important for all of us to remember. And we're going to elaborate on this some more, that we don't all date the same way, but we all use the same tools that are available to us to get to the same outcome and prize. But if one is going to be involved in dating, one should never forget that God is the one that guides us. We should not start dating without constant prayer. And if you are not dating, you should not stop praying while you're in the waiting period. If you are not interested in starting dating, you should still be praying until you are ready to engage in the dating game. And if you don't think that you are able to put together the words to pray about dating, here are a few suggestions that the Bible itself gives to us as a platform to start. The first one is that at every step, remain our first and greatest love. And this is two individuals who are dating. And even if you are single and you're not in line with the dating scene, your first and foremost objective is to always be in line with God's love. Because as God's love guides us, then we are able to learn and to see how precious it is when we interact with other individuals, especially in dating. Luke 10, verse 27. God should be our first and foremost standard as we pray about the issue of dating. The second one says we should ask for the passion. Give us the passion for each other's faith and joy in you. And that you is God there. Philippians 1, verse 25 and 26. So as you come together, your faith should align itself. Your joy should come from God, because He is the one that has been guiding you as an individual by yourself. And if it is that you join together in the dating experience, then God should still be the one who is guiding your footsteps and your path. The passion that you have should be guided by God Himself. God is the center of it all. The next one says, keep our affection for each other from blinding us to sin. 2 Corinthians 11, verse 2 and 3. As you get into the dating arena, into the dating game, it should not cause you to go to the extent where you forget that sin is not supposed to be a part of your experience. You should be trying to get away from it. It should be the type of thing where when you're dating someone, that both of you are cognizant of the fact that God wants each of us to become more like Him. So as you get affectionate with that person, that should constantly be a part of the experience. And the Bible helps us to understand that as you pray, your prayer should also involve opening your eyes and allowing you to discern that which will cause you to be blinded to sin. The next thing says that we should weave our dating relationship into other meaningful relationships. Hebrews 3, verse 12 and 13. And this essentially is saying that as you date, you are going to be developing friendships and relationships with others. Because quite often as you are dating one person, that person has other friends. That person has other individuals in their circle. And quite often you are able to meet and to interact with those persons. And many times you develop meaningful relationships with these other individuals. So be able to realize that as you date, you are also opening up yourself to interacting with individuals that can become lifelong friends. You can develop lifelong, meaningful relationships, even as you are dating one individual. And the final thing says that remind us, Lord, as you pray, that our bodies were bought with a precious and infinite price. 1 Corinthians 6:18-20. We should also keep in mind, it's important that as you date, that you do not do things that defile the physical body that you have. The Bible tells us that we should take care of our bodies, take care of it. So one body you have, so one body you will only have until the end comes. So even within the dating experience, even within the dating game, we should be cognizant of the fact that our bodies are precious. God died for us. We should take care of that which he has given unto us. So prayer is important. And these are just some aspects of praying that we should always keep in mind as we go about this dating game. Well, let's move on. What does the Bible say about dating? What can we learn about dating from the Bible? We're going to look at three important aspects that the Bible seeks to teach us about dating. The first one says we should establish a noble character while we are in our season of singleness. Second, displaying traditional gender roles in dating. This is going to be an interesting one. And the third one is observing the character of every potential mate and knowing your value. We'll look at these three aspects of dating we can learn from the Bible. We're going to see how they're going to unfold and how we can apply them to our lives. The first one is from Proverbs 31. Proverbs 31 is a very well-known Bible passage. And many individuals across the Christian world and even outside of the Christian world understand that Proverbs 31, which is quite often known as a chapter that describes the virtuous woman, it helps us to understand something very important. But I want us to look at it in a from a different dimension. Quite often, as you look at the chapter of Proverbs chapter 31, it tells us about a woman who is the ideal counterpart for a man. And whilst the passage seeks to highlight the basic and common attributes of that woman that will one day become the wife of a husband, the most valuable virtue that she must possess or continue to possess is a godly character. That is the most essential to understanding how one goes about their life and as they go about seeking to date and to be a part of the dating game, a noble character. In Proverbs 12 and verse 4, the Bible describes a virtuous woman as being the crown to her husband. Virtue speaks to a noble character. Very quite often, this passage, Proverbs 31, people seek to highlight that, hey, woman should be like this, woman should do that, and all of that. But essentially what Proverbs 31 wants us to understand is that a virtuous woman is a godly woman. The virtuous woman is a woman that has a godly character. Proverbs 12 and verse 4 speaks of the woman, the virtuous woman being a crown to her husband. Quite often people believe that a woman only becomes noble in her character after she gets married. So before that, she was just a normal, mediocre woman. But Proverbs here helps us to understand that the virtuous woman is a woman that has a noble character, not just when she is fully connected with a man in marriage, but she has a noble character even before that, because it is through her noble godly character that one is able to develop and the person that is going to be interacting with you through dating is going to see that, hey, this woman is different. This woman does not just know how to cook clean. This woman does not know how, just knows how to take care of household matters. She does not just know how to take care of a child, but this woman is a spiritual woman. This woman has a character that is godlike in nature. So here we understand that this aspect one should understand within the dating game is that a noble character is essential. But we're talking about the woman here so long. What about the men? What about the men who are a part of the equation? Now follow me to Daniel chapter 1 and verse 8. The Bible says that, but Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself. Purposed. Seen here, we can understand this is somebody who is steadfast. But it does not just say that he is steadfast in the circumstance that he is in, but it says that he purposed, meaning it is a past action. He was already somebody that was steadfast in his heart. He was already somebody who was subscribing to the divine character of God. And because of that purposed life that he was living, when he encountered something that challenged his character, he already had the strength in him to say, I am not going to defile myself. This is really speaking alongside the virtuous woman of Proverbs 31. Men should also have that same godlike character. A godlike character that is not just going to be displayed in the good times, but it is going to be displayed when they're challenged and when they're engaged in something that is foreign to them, that is alien to them. Because as one is involved in the dating game, it is something that's strange. It is something that is outside of the norm. You are not able to say, hey, I'm used to this, because every single individual is unique. So the first thing we want to learn from dating as it concerns the Bible's perspective is that we should aim to have a noble character. And as you develop and as you continue to work on that noble character, you are connecting yourself with God, who then guides you, who then allows you to grow in such a way that it is not determined by the bad times that you experience alone, but holistically, your character will always be shining out, always be shining out. And that is important as we go to the next aspect of the Bible's perspective on the dating game. Now, in Genesis 29, we find the story of Jacob. Jacob and his experience with the woman that he married. And the second thing that comes out from this story, and it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting. And if you miss any other part of this presentation, don't miss this part. So we're going to look at gender roles in dating. Genesis 29 speaks of the story of Jacob. And it helps us to understand that when a man truly cherishes and values a woman, he will pursue her and work as Jacob did in the story found in Genesis 29. So here, how we're going to unpack this now. Here are a few things we can learn from Jacob's story. And the first one is so important that I don't want you to miss this one. If you're distracted, don't be distracted at this moment. The first one says, don't let anyone determine how long you date. You missed that, I'm going to say it again. Don't let anyone determine how long you date. The Bible tells us that Jacob came to the place that he met this woman, Rachel, And he spoke to her father and said, listen, I'm going to work with you for 7 years. And for those 7 years, my intention is to get to know Rachel so I can marry her at the end of the period of working. Now, within the context, this is just their cultural understanding or their cultural dynamic. But the lesson here, the gem here that we must understand is that however long it takes you to date, it might not be 7 years. Some folks don't need that long. Some folks may need 5 years, some or less. But the essential thing is that don't let anyone determine how long you date. Your dating experience is not a community project. Yes, you can take suggestions from folks who are looking on. Yes, you can take advice from folks who are looking on. But at the end of the day, they should not determine your final decision. Jacob was determined that as he worked for Rachel's father, he was not only just going to work, but he's going to be involved in getting to know this woman and essentially getting to know someone he's dating on an exclusive level. Jacob demonstrated that it doesn't matter how long it takes, you determine what the dynamics of your dating experience is going to be. And I repeat, don't let anyone determine how long you date. And I'm repeating it because many individuals I know personally allowed folks to determine that. And at the end of the day, things ended tragically. Things ended badly for them. And it was not necessary. So remember now, the first lesson is that let no one determine how long you date. Jacob took 7 years. It can take you 2 years. Somebody else can take 3.5 years. Somebody else 5 years. You know what you are looking for. So don't let anybody determine how long your dating experience is going to be. So the second one is this. Never assume the other person has as much integrity as you believe you have. And this has been a shortfall and a downfall of many individuals. We have this notion that as you engage within the dating game, you are not looking to play games. And individuals say this. Folks say this all the time. I've heard folks say this. I'm not going about playing games. So if you think that I'm going to be engaged in this dating game that you have going on, I'm not involved in it. And whilst there is credit to what they're saying, quite often the premise creates problems, because then it creates within individuals who don't understand this level of interaction, it creates unrealistic philosophies in their minds, preconceived notions about what it really means to be in the dating game. And the dating game is not a game that is out to get you. Understand, we will establish that the dating game is not something that is there to punish you or to allow you to be in a state where you feel as if you wasted your time or you lost. No. Understand that men and women who carry this notion that they don't want to be subjected by the parameters of the dating game, they oftentimes assume that in order to date, everybody's going to play nice. And I'm sure you have, if you have not personally experienced it, you have seen individuals go through this. People have this notion that everybody has the same integrity. Everybody wants to play nice like they want to. Everybody has the same caring intention. The sad truth is that it is not so. Not everybody sees it this way you do. Many individuals are going through periods in their lives and they are affected by whatever is happening to them. And here comes you seeking to engage them, and the integrity that you are coming with, you find that they don't have it. And many individuals are hurt by it. Many individuals have a bitter taste to dating because they encounter somebody who they thought was nice, who they thought was caring, and they realize that this person has a less degree of integrity that they do. Jacob worked 7 years for Rachel. Can you imagine if after the end of 7 years, Rachel says she's no longer interested? Rachel says, I was just playing along. I'm not really interested in going further than in dating with you. That is the possibilities that lies there. And so we gather from the experience of Jacob that we have to be cognizant of the fact that individuals we might engage with, they don't see things the same way you do. And so it takes us to our third lesson from Genesis 29 with Jacob's story. The role of the pursuer and the giver for men and the role of receiver for woman is established from the beginning. I'm going to use myself as an object lesson to explore this aspect of the experience of Jacob in Genesis 29. On the dating scene today, many individuals say that and understand that men are the pursuers. Men are the one that chase, and women are the one who love to be chased. But over the last few decades, this dynamic has continued to shift and change. In the world we live today, many women take on the masculine role, take on the male role of the pursuer. And many times as the pursuer, they go for what they want. And then I've heard individuals say this, but we're going to look at this within the context of the experience of Jacob himself. Jacob was obviously the pursuer, and Rachel was the one who was the receiver. Quite often in the context of our contemporary time, women who become pursuers, they go after what they want, they go after whom they want, but the outcome in the long run, because most times they will get who they want, but the outcomes in the long run are not always a positive one. As you operate within a masculine role as a woman, and I'm going to shift it as well, it's not just women, you are going to attract the type of man that you desire. But quite often it's not the man that you need. I'm going to use myself as an object lesson. When my now wife and I were dating, I did not see her. Let me put some flesh to that. I met her when I was working as a literature evangelist or a canvasser in a place that I was not familiar. So I left where I was living before, and I actually went and stayed because it was a summer period. So I left around May, and I went to work as a literature evangelist on another side of the island where I live. And so I was working there with a friend of mine, two of us. We decided to go and do some literature evangelists, and we were headquartered at a central location. It was on the grounds of the conference. So that's where we were staying at for the period of time. Now, there were two churches within walking distance from where we were. There was one church on the grounds of the conference, and there was another church a little up the road from where I was. Naturally, you would think we would go to the church that's on the conference because it's literally 200 yards away from where we were staying. But we met somebody within our training that went to the other church, and she invited my friend and I to that church to worship with them. So we went there for the first couple Sabbaths, and suffice to my knowledge, she was a part, that's my wife, she was a part of the praise team. She was engaged in all aspects as possible in church, but I never saw her. I literally did not see, I could not identify her if somebody would have shown me at that point in time. I did not see her. I was more engaged in trying to be comfortable with this new environment. However, my friend was the more sociable, engaging one. I was the more shy, observant one. So he met her, he engaged her, and she said to him she was going to ask him to do something for her in the future. So it's about June, and in July, they had Youth Month, and the youth were in charge of everything from the first elder, all aspects of the church. It was a youth in charge. She was in charge of the children's division of the church. So she was in charge of administering all the various roles and all of that. She asked my friend and I for us to be teachers in the Sabbath school lessons for the children. And so we obliged. And we said, of course, we will do it, and we did. Now, there was one instant where we went to, they had a young people's group meeting, or they were having practice. It was a singing group, and they invited us. So we went, my friend entered the church first, and he being himself made his entrance, and everybody saw him. They were familiar with him, but they never saw me. I entered and I said, good evening. And after my saying good evening, everybody's attention turned to me. They totally forgot about my friend. He was seeking to get their attention, but they never saw me. They never heard me before. All I said was good evening. And everybody's attention turned towards me. Now, mind you, most of the individuals within this session were females, including my now wife. I did not see her. I glimpsed her, but I did not see her. All the other individuals were engaged in getting to know me. But after that, after teaching and after engaging with the students in the classes in the Sabbath school, eventually we got to communicate with each other. Now, here's the thing. Between both of us, we have not fully agreed as to who was the pursuer. Initially, I said I pursued her, but she says to me that, hey, she created the circumstance for me to see her. So really, she was the pursuer. We're not going to argue about that. If she believes that, that's fine. But the truth is that as a pursuer, you are able to see multiple dimensions of the person you're pursuing. As a man, God has given us the natural nature. The nature is in us to pursue, to chase. And as you chase a woman, you are able to see multiple dimensions of the person that you are chasing. As a woman, as a receiver, you are able to see from a different angle the person that is pursuing you. Now, when we mix up all of that, quite often we miss red flags, quite often we miss things that we would have seen if we were doing the natural thing that God gave to us. And in the world we live in, quite often we see individuals switch these things up and they find themselves in problems. Jacob, can you imagine if he was the one who was being the receiver? He was the foreigner, he was the outsider. He wasn't the one who was comfortable within the space. But as he pursued this woman in her comfort zone, he was able to see all the dimensions of Rachel. This is an important part of the dating experience, that you allow the natural state of each of the genders to take place, because God created it this way. This dynamic that God created between a man and a woman is there to be a guiding pathway to seeing all that one needs to see. Because guess what? You can be dating someone and they show you that, hey, They fit this category. Hey, this is the person. And then something happens and a red flag goes up and you say, hey, hold on now. This shows a different dimension of this person. I don't think I can handle this. That allows you to realize something, and then you are able to say, all right, it's either we can just be friends or we can just part ways and go and not engage each other in dating anymore. So this is how we are able to see through the experience of Jacob and Rachel that gender roles are important. It is a part of us understanding the dynamic that comes along in the dating game. And whenever it is that we try to twist it and turn it, we are the ones that suffer. So important, so essential to the experience that one wants to have, the good experience, the rewarding experience of dating. So here we are as it unfolds. Jacob and Rachel coming together. Their experience gives us some lessons that we can apply to ourselves. But the third thing we want to look at is from the book of Ruth, Ruth chapter 2. What does this seek to highlight for all of us? That we should be looking at the other person's character, and we should also be looking at our own value. We should observe a person's character before we decide to let them into the innermost parts of our life. Because essentially the purpose of dating is to collect data on a person to find out if there is a potential for a long-term companionship and commitment. In the book of Ruth chapter 2, we find the story of Ruth and Boaz. The first thing we come to understand from their story is that as Ruth comes to the environment of her mother-in-law, her husband died, her sons died, so Ruth is a widower. Interesting. She decides that she's not going to leave Naomi alone. She's going to come and live within her environment. And she finds herself working in the fields, not knowing who was the owner of this field, but the owner of this field noticed that Ruth was attending to her work in the fields. And the truth is that she was not even legitimately working, because the Bible tells us that all she did was collect the scraps that the other workers were leaving behind, and she would be taking up all of this and using it to be work for her. No, essentially we must realize, and I put this in there as an important aspect as we look at our contemporary time, that Ruth was working as a woman by herself. Boaz noticed that Ruth was working, and he realized that she was diligent in her work, and she was not distracted by any other suitor, any other man that was in the town at the time, young, old, rich, poor. She was not distracted by any other person. She was just engaged in her work. She valued that which she was doing. She valued herself as a person and her potential as an individual. That is an important ingredient in the dating game. You must see yourself as valuable. You cannot go about engaging individuals seeing yourself as not valuable, because tell you the truth, they are going to see that you don't see yourself as valuable, and they will treat you accordingly. And we don't want that. So Ruth here demonstrates that we should see value in ourselves. We should see value in a passion that we have. If we have something that we love, we should engage in it regardless of what's happening around us, because we see value in that thing. We see value in what we're doing. So we must be able to separate all the distractions, and we should also be able to concentrate on the value that we have of ourselves. God himself sees us as valuable. That's why he came and died. Not for one individual, not for a family. He did not just come to die for one country. The Bible tells that God gave his son to die for the entire world. You are valuable. And so as you see your value, as Ruth would have seen her value, and as Boaz saw her value, he noticed that her character and how she valued herself came out in how she carried out herself. Now understand that he did not have to see it that way. He did not have to see her as somebody that has a wonderful character, or a character that is attractive. Now you see, we keep going back to things that we said before because all of them intersect. Character is important. Your character is important. The other person's character is important. And so this just helps us to understand within certain aspects how these values and how these things can be put into perspective. Boaz saw that Ruth was somebody who valued herself and who saw that her character was attractive. Our character should be attractive to everyone we come in contact with. So then from this we can see also that a woman does not have to pursue a man to show her value. He should already be able to see her value from the moment he meets her. A woman does not have to put on a show to show that she's valuable. Your character, coming back to that again, is able to shine forth when you are interacting with individuals that, hey, this person is different. There's something about this person that is attractive and I don't even know his or her name. It's interesting when you have come in contact with somebody who has a character that is so attractive that you are drawn to it. You don't even know this person's name. You don't even know what this person is about. But because of the value, and Ruth was able to demonstrate that, because the story tells us that when Boaz noticed Ruth, he inquired about who she was. Because of how her character and the way in which she carried herself, how she valued herself, shone forth in her interaction and in her work. Boaz said, no, I have to meet this girl. I have to meet this girl. I must find out who this girl is because something about her just attracts me and I can't shake it. So there's something here that comes out for us to apply to ourselves, that as we date, we must be able to see what it is that makes us attractive, what makes our life and our personality come forth in such a way that somebody who likes us, somebody who sees us as attractive, can't do anything but do it and seek to find out if there's a possibility or there's a potential out of that meeting. So we should seek to shine forth our value through our characters, and that character, as we have learned from the first point, is a character that is godly. The next thing is this: do what you know is right, not what looks right to others. Ruth moved from the agony of questions of losing her husband and losing her father-in-law and her brother-in-law. She moved from the agony of those questions that she couldn't answer to the reality of answers that she could not escape. And she followed that conviction. Sometimes things happen that causes us to feel as if, boy, I need to leave this dating thing alone because all it's going to cause me is misery. It's going to make me bitter. I don't want to deal with it anymore. But those answers that you can't find, those questions you can't find the answers to, quite often lead us to the realities that we can't escape after that. Because there's a conviction that comes with, and understand, convictions are not merely beliefs we hold to. They are those beliefs that hold us in their grip. So if your conviction is something that is strong enough, you are not going to just be acting upon it, but you are going to believe in it each step of the way. Now, our conviction should always be centered around God's words, the truth that we find in God, because the Bible has all the things necessary for us individually, for us as we engage in dating to understand, and for all of us to apply ourselves. Remember, we don't all date the same way. So you might not use the same truth that I use, but that truth is there for you. It is going to convict you enough so you can make your decision. So sometimes we find ourselves, not understanding what we're supposed to do next. The only thing you should be fully convicted to do is the right thing. It doesn't matter what anyone else says. Your conviction should be grounded upon the truths of God, and the truths of God are to do what is right, to be righteous. So righteousness is a part of the equation as we seek to go about understanding the dating game. So those three things: a noble character, understanding the roles in dating, the gender roles in dating, and also seeing the character of the person, and also understanding the value of yourself. So let's move on. One of the most important aspects of dating is asking the right questions. If you're not asking the right questions, you're just going to get any answer that the other person feels like giving you. When you ask the right questions, you are then able to complete the puzzle of knowing the other person, because this is somebody that is blank to you. The puzzle here, the questions that you have, are able to connect all the pieces of the puzzle together as you see it on your screen. And when you put all them together, then you get not only a answer, but you get the big answer to all the small questions you're going to ask. Now, sometimes you meet someone and it just clicks. I know we've all experienced it somewhere or another. So you just meet someone and you all just click. It's just without effort. It's like you've known this person all your life, but you just met them. And then as you connect and as you click, you're saying to yourself, boy, where have you been? Where on earth have you been? How did I even function before you existed? There are just some people that you are able to click with. It's either friendship or as you are dating someone, you just click with that person. And then there's some other folks who you connect with, and it takes a little more effort to put some work into it, because there are a little more rough edges, there are a little more hurdles you need to go over. It takes a little effort. So understanding that sometimes it can either be an instant click, but other times you must understand that it can take a little work. As you engage an individual in this aspect of the dating experience, you are then able to know how you can move forward. If I click with this person, then I know the pace at which I can go. If it takes a little effort, then I know that, hey, I'm gonna have to put some work into this. If I truly believe that this person can be an asset and can make my life better and give me the ability to grow, I'm gonna have to put some work into it. That's the truth, because dating is consistently dialoguing, asking questions, answering questions, answering questions, asking questions. It's a constant dialogue. And one of the ways in which people say or define dating is they say, me and that person is talking. I'm sure we've used this term before. Me and this other person is talking. Why? Because that's how you get to know someone. Dialogue, talking, giving and taking is a part of the building experience of dating. So you can't be talking to somebody and it is half-hearted. You're going 100, that person is going 60. You are going 80, that person is going 40. It has to find a balance of constantly dialoguing with one another. Now, What are the questions and answers that come along with talking? The first thing and the most common thing you can start off with is talking about your likes and dislikes. It's a common thing. Everybody seeks to find common ground in whether we like something or we don't like something. So you say, for example, what's your favorite holiday? Some people say it's Christmas at the end of the year. Some people say it is Easter period. Whatever it is, find that kind of common ground. Music, the most universal thing. What is your favorite genre of music? Who is your favorite singer? What's your favorite song? These things allow people to have a consistent dialogue. What's your favorite season? Do you like summer? Do you like winter, spring, or fall? These things. What's your favorite meal of the day? Breakfast, lunch, or dinner? Or what is your favorite meal actually? What kind of meal that you have that if you see it, if you desire it, you're gonna get it. Those things are what helps two individuals to engage in consistent dialogue. But those are likes, those are things, but they're also dislikes. So you should then be able to know if this person has a phobia. Does this person have a phobia for spiders or for crawling insects? Or like myself, do you know that I have a phobia for heights? I'm afraid of heights. Well, whilst I might jump off a high building, my fear of heights is a bit limited, but I do naturally, without control, have a fear of heights. So we must know these things, because let's say you are engaging someone in dating, you don't know that they have a phobia, and you think that that phobia in a general sense is funny, and you try to make a joke by picking at their phobia without them knowing, and you see their reaction and you're confused. So it's important for you to get into those nitty-gritties, because people have things that they dislike and phobias and other things that they dislike. You are able to say, hey, I understand you. And when you know these things, you get a better appreciation of this person. You talk about their family of origin. Did they grow up in a single parent home? Did they grow up in a home with both parents? Is their family large or small? Do they have siblings? Do you have a family nickname? One of the things that often happens to me is that folks within my circle, my close circle, they only know my nickname, while there's certain people who only know my government name. And sometimes when a person finds out about my family nickname, they're confused, because it's like you don't even see me being called that name. I'm not gonna tell you. The baby cells. Maybe next time. But those things, you're able to see them. I never knew that my wife had a certain family name, and I refuse to call her by her family name, but her family does. She refused me to call me by my family nickname, but we still we're able to move forward. So these things come up as you're dating. Family traditions. This your family is a tradition that is set and that you find important. All these things come about. Your career or your career goals. What is your career choice? Why did you choose your career choice? Do you actually enjoy your career or your job? These things open up other dimensions to the person. You know how this person is at their job versus how they are around their family. So you can see the dynamic of each individual person. You know these persons, you get to find out these persons' values and beliefs. How do they see friendships? What are the personality traits that they like versus what they dislike? How do they see gender roles between male and female? How do they see parental roles if they want to be parents? And one of the most important aspects is, what are the spiritual views that each of you hold? Are they common to you, to each other? Do you have a view that is different from the other person? Is it going to cause problems? Is it something you can just work with? Or do you believe that you will grow in your knowledge of this spiritual view? All these things come into play. And they're unconventional questions. So does the person have a double joint in their finger or their toes or something? Do they have something that is just random? It's unconventional. Do they write in cursive or do they use block writing? I write in cursive while my wife does the opposite. So these things, does the person you're dating have allergies? That's so important. They could have an allergy that could kill them and you don't know. They could be allergic to peanuts. You bring them something with peanut and it could cause them severe medical harm. Unconventional questions. Do they have unpopular opinions? Socially, generally, do they have unpopular opinions? Find out if there's there's an unusual story that they have about themselves, something that they have hidden from even their own parents. And all of this is coming with comfort. Each of this comes with comfort. Is a person comfortable telling you about some of these things? All of this involves being comfortable. And you are able to see how comfortable you're able to see how far you can go with some of these questions. But the fact is, you are in constant dialogue. Anytime you reveal personal information to someone, it increases understanding between you and the other person. It's simple as that. Now, here are some myths and misconceptions. Now, I want to run to this one. Some people believe that God has one woman, one man picked out for you to date and marry. It's quite often a misconception. And we find that folks use that misconception to push people into things that they quite often suffer in the end, because they believe that if you're dating this person, no, yes, that's a person you found. You found your one and only love, when you're really just getting to know this person. It doesn't have to result in anything further than that. So that's something we should consider. Another thing that people say is that you should be friends with a woman or a man before you date. Now, there's a story that I heard where a young man was very attractive to a young woman. And he decided that in order to get her attention, he's going to be as friendly as possible. So he will pick her up, take her to church, or if she needs something, he will get it for her. He will, engage her in a nice evening and walking out as friends. But his intention is really to get her to see he's attractive. And it went on for a while. Another young man at the church asked her to go out on a date, and she said yes. And he was distraught. He felt so distraught in himself, and he told her of his feelings, and she was shocked and said, "Why didn't you tell me?" Because I would not say no. Well, she went out with the other person, and the first initial person left the friendship and just went on with his life. So sometimes you can really get into the dating scene with somebody without actually being lifelong friends. Not taking the fact that being lifelong friends gives an advantage, but it doesn't have to be friends. You can just share your feelings. And it's either the person says yes or no. Sometimes we feel that rejection is harsh, but it's better to say than to keep it, because sometimes it works out for the benefit of both of you. There's another thing that people say is that the male or the man's sexuality is like this ravenous, terrible beast that should be put into a cage until he's married. That's not true. That quite often comes from the fact that people misunderstand how one is able to be disciplined because they themselves are disciplined. So individuals project this type of mentality onto an individual, a male that they believe is in the prime of his life. That means his sexuality is at its peak, and so he's ready to just jump anyone. That's not true. Many individuals have discipline, and so you or anybody who projects on this person quite often causes injury to somebody else who is listening and say, well, I would have loved to go out with this person, but if you believe that he is an animal, then I should stay away from him. So we can't run with these things. Another thing that quite often catches us is that we believe that if he or she goes to church and participates in church, that they must be godly. Mm-mm, mm-mm. Some people are putting on shows. Some people are just looking like somebody that will make you look wonderful if you're dating them. But when you realize on a one-on-one level, they're not godly, they're not spiritual. But people believe that once you're engaged in the actual activity, then you must be godly. Mm-mm. It's not always true. It's a misconception that runs throughout our environment and our community. Another thing is that if you do all the things that are right, God will bring you a spouse. Mm-mm. Many people believe that God is going to do all the heavy lifting in dating. But we are a part of the process. The initiation of getting into the dating scene, the dating game, comes from us. God will guide us through the process. God will show us what we need to avoid and what we should pay attention to. But just because you do everything that's right, mean God is going to do all the heavy lifting. That's a myth and misconception. We are a part of the process, so we should be engaged as well. And the final one says, all the good ones are already taken. I've heard it so many times. All the good ones are already taken. That's not true. And if it is that you believe it long enough, it will become a reality to you. But I've seen other folks say this same statement that all the good ones are already taken, while I see other people around them getting married. Other people around them are dating. So who is at the shortfall here? Something to think about. Ultimately, the purpose of dating should be whatever God deems under God's guidance. It is vital to recognize that as many will fall into the trap of believing that the person he or she is dating must and can only be his or her spouse. The goal and hope, of course, will be marriage, but not every relationship is meant to result in marriage. Some things, some relationships, some connections are meant to just further our character, to teach us a lesson, and to be for us a season. So you can just date a person for a season. And that develops something that we probably would not have seen if we were by ourselves. So we must recognize God's guidance in all of this. It says that dating relationships should draw us closer to Christ, not closer to sin. Don't compromise to keep anyone. God is more important. From the beginning, God is supposed to be there with us, right until we get to the next step from dating. God should be there. If it is that we are not led closer to God, we're only being led to doing things that are against God's truth, then we must let it go. It don't matter how good that man can cook. It doesn't matter how nice that woman's skin is. If she leads you, if he leads you to a path that is not in line with God's will, leave that person alone. You are not a superhero. You don't have divine power to change anyone. Allow God to guide you, because he is the ultimate goal of each individual. Whether you're dating or not, God is who we are heading towards. And so this is an important reminder for us as we engage in the dating game. It's not a game that is there to cause people harm or to take from people without giving. This is not the type of game we're talking about. This is a game that has mutual understanding, that seeks to have a win-win situation at all times. So when I'm looking at the theme of the dating game or fame, understand that this is in the context of God's guidance. It is within the context of understanding that we are involved And it is also helping us to understand that regardless of what others think, as long as we're doing what is right, God will reward us with who he believes will be the best for us. Because dating is not for you to make your order and move on. Dating is a win-win situation. And if it is not a win-win consistently, then it's a lose-lose finally. So God is the most important thing. And he is our dating coach. In any sports, in any kind of interactive game, there is a coach involved. There's somebody there who not only understands what it is to be on the sidelines, but knows what it means to be involved one-on-one. There is a God, and this God created and rules his world, including men, women, the biological compulsions that bind us together, and the institution that declares their union and keeps it sacred and safe. 1 Corinthians 10 and verse 31 says, so whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. We are learning as we date to love like Jesus. Jesus shows us that in the arena of understanding each other, he is the ultimate example. He is the one that is going to coach us through our dating experience. And if God is at the center of it, and if God is the one that is guiding us through all the hurdles, guiding us through all the distractions and all the things that we have to be engaged in, he's going to teach us to love like he did. He's the one that left. He's the one that was the pursuer. He left heaven, the glories of heaven, to come and pursue his people. The Apostle Paul likens it to the woman being a church. Jesus himself pursued us. He was the one that engaged us. He was the one that was interested in us, even though many times we turned our backs on him. He was the one that was pursuing us. He's the one that wanted us to see what true love is like. Jesus individually sought to get our attention, saw that even though our sins are like filthy rags, he was still attracted to us and he wanted to be with us. Jesus himself is the ultimate coach. Jesus himself is the one that can guide us through this process. And as he guides us through the process, when we are going to make the decision to make a full commitment into the next stage, we are able to see his hand in our commitment. We are able to see his hand in the other person that we're committed to. Because as both of you build that foundation on God himself, as you allow the coach, the true dating coach, to guide you through all the processes, the preparation, the full engagement onto the next stage, then you will realize that you have nothing to fear. So this evening, as we look at this wonderful and engaging experience called the dating game, not something that we're looking for fame, but something that allows us to be guided by the one who knows everything, the one who has all the strength and all the power to help us. So let us give glory to God in whatever we do. That includes in the dating game. Thank you for being fully engaged. Thank you for allowing me to share in this experience. And I hope and trust that as we, analyze and as we look into all that we have learned, and even if you don't remember everything, one thing that engaged you, as you look into it, I hope that it will encourage you, motivate you, and allow you to move forward and apply yourself as you see yourself dating, or if you're dating now, you can apply yourself and allow God to be your ultimate coach. Thank you so much. Thank you again for this opportunity. And I hope and trust that we'll all be blessed as we look into these things.